tell us what we need to know about Alex Bregman not returning to the Boston Red Sox. Pat, set the scene.
Well, I think you guys explained it pretty much. The no trade clause to me was the final factor and decision maker in this. And, I don't know how y'all feel, but I feel like I did in college when I walked into a bar and there's this hot chick there, and you waited to go up and talk to her, and then somebody else came in, swooped in and talked to her, and now she's gone. She left the bar with him. So that's how I feel right now. But it's the Red Sox to me are a big market team in and out, and you are not going to win, especially today with the New York Yankees and the Toronto Blue Jays in your division, first of all, without being able or prepared to pay. I mean, the market speaks for itself nowadays. If you're not prepared to go 170 to 250 to 350, I don't care amount of years, you got to be able to pay. And they're just not doing that right now. And now the latest thing I've heard is they're going to get creative with the offseason. And I've heard this before, let's get creative. Let's start signing more ground ball guys. You're going to platoon like Eaton and somebody else at second. Meyer, rookie who got hurt all last year, is probably going to look at playing third. And that doesn't cut it for me.
Can we just clarify one thing with his analogy? Did you like it? I just felt like there was one slice missing from it for Pap. So it's like you went on an amazing date, right? Because you already have a relationship formed with this girl. Then you see her at the bar and you kind of like either ignore her or go up to her and say something weird or not inappropriate, but like you offer her like to, I don't know, not hang out at the moment. Like we'll hang out again another time. And then she leaves.
First of all, and I also want to say this for Pap. He went to college in Mississippi State. I've been to Mississippi State. There aren't a ton of girls there that Pap should be talking to anyways.
Wow.
So I'm just going to throw that out there. Maybe he got lost and he ended up in a field with some other cows or some sheep or something that he got confused with. But let's just throw that out there first. And by the way, you weren't old enough to drink when you were in college, Pap. So that's also another thing that we're not going to talk about.
True story, AJ. True story. But here's the thing: when it all boils down to it, this dude, right? As soon as he came to the Red Sox, and talk about Bregman, right? As soon as he came through, he was anointed as a captain, leader, another coach on the bench. All these things. I'm sitting here thinking we're going to wrap this up by Christmas. And this is going to be a Christmas present for Red Sox Nation. Not only did they stumble their feet, the disappointment is now set in. And now what are you going to do? But to me, I did more than half of the home games with Nesson last year. And the asses were in the seats still. And you're going to have to see, like, are we going to be prepared for the fans to revolt on us or not? Because I've heard a lot of bad things from the fans so far.
Yeah, but they didn't revolt when they weren't signing guys other years. And then they signed Bregman last year, and the asses were in their seats. So that's, to me, have they made that move to put the asses back in the seats? Because really this team floundered, minus Garrett Crochet, this team floundered around 500. Is Roman Anthony going to be the guy who's taking this team to the next level? Is Trevor Story going to continue? Like, he had to jump back up last year. Is your MVP candidate, Cedane Rafaela, going to, like, carry this team? Because they've downgraded their offense right now without making this signing.
There's no question about that, Kratz. But to me, it's the Red Sox, in order to compete in this division now, and the last thing I heard is the Phillies were talking to Bichette. So I'm sitting here thinking at least we're going to go after Bichette, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen either. So you're relying on Cedane having an MVP type season, which I think he can have. You're relying on role players at second, role players at third, and possibly at first base, if Casas does come back, I don't know. Contreras is probably going to play 95% of the time, but what are you going to do with him as well? So there's so many question marks up in the air that some things have got to be figured out. And, you know, to me, it's not looking good right now because they just crept into the playoffs last year with the wild card and ended up getting their butts beat by the New York Yankees. So I don't know how much longer you can accept that if I'm the Boston Red Sox front office.
All right, it's funny you said front office was the last thing you said, because you said when they brought Bregman in, this was a dude that was a coach on the field. Does this non-signing, yes, they offered him $165 million. Yes, it's a lot of money, but they didn't get the job done. Does this non-signing signify a more of a disconnect between the front office and the field than there was before?
I think yes and no. I think it continues that there is a disconnect because the fans and the front office with the Boston Red Sox right now are so disconnected. I mean, you know, my buddy that I do Unrestricted Views with, Carabas, he's about to commit suicide. But like the thing is, though, is there a disconnect between AC, Jason Varitek, and some of these guys that are on staff with the front office? That's my big concern right now. Like, is there a disconnect there at all? Because to me, I'm coaching this team. I need these guys. I'm trying to stress how important a guy like Bregman is in my clubhouse. And the last thing I want to say too is the Red Sox having this no trade clause, we don't do that rule is a bunch of BS. Okay, that's all BS. First of all, they did it with Pedroia when I was there, and they did it with, I think, Chris Sale and maybe one other guy. So that's BS. You got to throw that out the window. And so to me, if that was the final straw, then they missed big with Bregman.
No, they did miss big. But also, why would Bregman want to no trade when they traded Mookie, they traded Sale, and they traded Devers in the last few years? So if I'm him and I'm going there, I want to no trade because they have a history of trading these guys later on. So that is a big deal to players, having that security and having that whole thing. So I agree with you, Pat. But what I want to know is, where do they go next? Like, you kind of hit on it, but do they go out and find somebody else? Do they go after a Bo Bichette, right? Are they comfortable with Meyer, and are they comfortable with Christian? We forgot about Christian Campbell. We don't even talk about him. They signed him to like a $60 million deal last year, and he was in AAA most of the year. So what do they do with him, right? So they have options, but are they good enough to help them with what Alex Bregman brought, not only on the field, but from what everyone says he brought off the field? When you add Wilson Contreras, you add Sonny Gray, you add some other guys here and there, but they haven't really improved the infield. And if they're run prevention, Alex Bregman is great at run prevention at their base.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. So for me being a pitcher, AJ, and I'm a big believer in run prevention, obviously, but to me is who are those guys going to be? I mean, Meyer is unproven in the infield, and you're right now got him probably slotted in at third base. Then you got Eaton and Campbell, who both are completely unproven at second base. And at shortstop, does Trevor Story at his age come back and still be capable of having an MVP type season and carrying a team? You bring in Contreras. Now, Contreras, to me, is going to have to go out. If they don't do anything else, he's going to have to go out and have a big poppy 40 and 45 and hit 320. I mean, and that's not going to happen. So to me, the moves have got to be made. But like I said earlier, y'all, the front office has got to be prepared to spend. I don't understand their motives behind not wanting to spend money right now, because everyone else, especially Toronto and New York, who are in your division, are spending money.
Where are they at? Where are they at in the division right now? You just said Toronto and New York. Well, New York hasn't spent money yet, but you assume they will. But
yeah,
where do you have the Red Sox? Are they a third-place team right now? Or do you like the Orioles enough to make the Red Sox a fourth-place team?
Well, I think the Orioles are going to bounce back. So to me, it's going to be fighting between Tampa Bay and the Red Sox for last place in the division. And that's where I see them right now. But the whole thing of this is that when you're a front office, right? And I'm not in the front office, but you've got, just like the players are seeing what's happening with other players. AJ, you said this earlier. You think that the Bregman deal is going to affect the Bellinger deal and so on and so on. Well, there's no difference in the front office, right? These deals affect who are you going to go after? What are you going to do next? And to me, they've got to get in on the Bo Bichette deal. I don't know if y'all know this, but here's a little fun fact from Bo Bichette. His dad played there, right? His dad met his mom in Boston. He was born in Boston and all that mess. So every time he goes to Boston, somehow he just rakes. Check out his numbers. I checked them out like 2 weeks ago, but they're off the charts. And so to me, if you got a player that can play in Fenway Park, he's one of them.
True. What about a trade for Arenado? Like, what about Nolan Arenado? Or what about Gino Suarez on a short-term 1 year with an opt-out kind of thing? Same thing they tried with Bregman, right? What about, those are some bigger named third basemen. Arenado's defense, yes, has slipped. His offense has slipped a little bit, but he's still a decent player. Suarez he'll hit you some homers. He'll strike out a ton, but he's going to hit you homers. He's a good vibes guy. So what about one of those two possibly coming in and taking over there?
Yeah, I tell you what, AJ, out of all those people, I do like those moves. You got to start getting creative and thinking, okay, can we slip in some 1-2 year deals with this guy or that guy? But to me, that guy would have to be Nolan Arenado. Like, he's got to be on the radar. If he's not, they're mistaken again. And the reason why I say that is because this clubhouse, and I've been around these guys a lot, they need leadership, man. And Nolan is one of those guys who will step right in, just like a Bregman, and lead a team. He's going to be the same guy day in and day out, and he's going to be someone that throughout the course of the season they can lean on if he stays healthy, and that's everybody. But, yeah, they're going to have to get creative in some ways or another, AJ.
Who's the star now? So who steps up and is the star? Because that's where the maturation of Marcelo Meyer, the maturation of Roman Anthony, the fact that you were hoping Tristan Casas would take the next steps, watching Bregman, who's the star for them to watch? Is Story that guy?
Story's not that guy. I'm sorry. It's not Story. To me, in the pitching side of it, it's obviously Garrett Crochet. He's the guy that everybody's going to show up to and watch. But on the other side, the position side of the field, to me, they've already anointed him as the star, and he's going to have to continue to fill big, huge shoes of being the star, and that's Roman Anthony, right? So this kid you're relying on a 22-year-old kid to go out in Fenway Park night in and night out and be the next David Ortiz or the next, star among stars, and they've already anointed him as that. So if he fails right out the gate, it's going to be, oh, crap, what do we do now? So there's a lot of pressure on that kid to be a star. And do I think he can do it? Yes, I think he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he can be a star for the Red Sox and, be that guy or that dude. But it's only time will tell.
All right, Pap, let's move on. Do they have enough pitching right now? I know you said they're going to be battling with the Rays. Crochet had an unbelievable year. They went out and get Sonny Gray. They're relying on some of their younger guys, Bayo and some of these guys to kind of take that next step and become what they need. They brought back Chapman in the back end of the bullpen, but they're counting on guys again to have great years that a lot of people outside of Fenway have never heard of. Do they have enough pitching, or do they need to go out and still get another pitcher? Because they did lose Giolito. He's a free agent. So do they have enough pitching right now? Forget the offensive side of it. Do they have enough pitching? Because everyone says pitching wins championships. And when the Red Sox were winning, they had Pedro and they had Wake and they had you in the back end and Keith Folk and all these guys in the back end that were really good. So do they have enough pitching right now to compete in this division? Forget the offense.
Well, AJ, I don't think they do. I don't think you can ever really have enough pitching, especially in Fenway Park. But here's some keys to the situation with the bullpen, though. You got Chapman coming back, who is defines life, and I've watched his offseason workout videos again this offseason just because I'm so intrigued by this man. But he's going to be back doing the same things, in my opinion. And you got his setup man and Whitlock established already, who both had phenomenal seasons last year, both all-star type seasons. Now, you're going to need some guys to step up again. You know, there's probably not going to be a Bernardino again. And, you know, he was really good for him. But the starting pitching, to me, all relies on one guy, and that's Brian Bayo, not Garrett Crochet, okay? Brian Bayo has got to come and start pitching like a number 1 or 2, not a 3 or 4, and start being able to not only pitch that way, but AJ and Kratz be able to beat other teams' number 1s and 2s. When you have that guy that's your second and third starting staff rotator and going out and winning games against other guys' 1s and 2s, that's when you can creep up in the standings. So if he can do that, then they'll be all right. But still, that we have yet to see Brian Bayo do that. So that's unproven.
Talking about pitching, are you okay with the moves of not getting Bregman if they trade for a Freddie Peralta, and you can launch this team back into the first or second in the division, or at least a playoff team, if they would get a Freddie P, a true number 1 to go behind your ace in Crochet?
Yes, I would, Kratz. Yes, because now you have the pitching staff to take up for the lack of what your lineup is doing, right? Now, in all 3 phases of the game, hitting, pitching, and defense, when all those line up, yeah, you go on 10, 12-run streaks of winning. But, you know, when you have a guy like Freddie P going and a Garrett Crochet going, and you can somehow, some way get into the playoffs, then boom, you're set, right? You got that 1-2 punch, especially when it's, you know, 4-game, 5-game series, and it's not a 7-game series. You know, you can beat them in 3 or 4 games. So that would be huge, in my opinion.
I just want to circle back to the top of why we're all chatting right now. So the Red Sox badly wanted someone. They already had a taste.
But I told you,
and then
what
they
I was,
came up short like this.
But they didn't. They wouldn't budge because maybe we should ask Pap. Are the Red Sox front office and ownership, John Henry, overconfident in what they do and what they offer? Because from what I was told, they made an early offer to Bregman, didn't budge. They went back and said, "Look, we have a higher offers than what you're offering us." Alex kind of wants to come back. Then the no trade, all that stuff happened, and then the Red Sox were like, "We don't believe you." And then Bregman was like, "Hey, I'm going to go with another team." And then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, here's our real best offer, 5/165 with a ton of deferrals out, 20, 30 years." Do we think maybe the Red Sox were just too overconfident that Alex Bregman's market wasn't going to get there and they were just going to get him back?
I think you nailed it on the head, AJ. But let me tell you something. I don't know if y'all had Scott Boras as an agent or not. But when Scott Boras comes back and he tells you, I got 5 for 175, or I got 7 for 250, or I got 9 for 350, you believe him, okay? You believe him. And then you go about your business accordingly to what he says. So, them saying, "Oh, we don't," but come on, man, that's child's play to me. And secondly, when you realize that, okay, this no trade clause is that important to him, then you come up off of that too. Like, there's no questions asked. And I don't know about y'all, but Bregman's to the point of his life where he wants stability, and there's no question about it. Like, he's got his wife, kids, and, he's at that point where he wants to be settled. And I think that played a huge factor in this whole situation.